So for everybody in the call today, we are recording the session. You can choose whether you want to show your screen or not if you ask questions later on. Welcome to International Stammtisch. This is our International Stammtisch for the month of October. We've had a couple of very good sessions over the year, and I will talk a little bit more about what the upcoming International Stammtisch plans are after we finish our little discussion today. We have a very special occasion tonight. We are celebrating 5 years of city partnership between Frankfurt and Philadelphia. And we thought this is an excellent opportunity to connect with colleagues and teams across the Atlantic in Philadelphia. And we're very happy to have a very interesting and lively, we had some very good conversations already, group on our meeting today. And I would like to first give the stage to Edward Hechler from the city of Frankfurt to open our discussion and to perhaps say a couple of words of introduction. Edward, please, over to you.
Yeah, many thanks. First of all, warm welcome to everybody in this round. And I have to say a special welcome to our friends and colleagues from Philadelphia, Siobhan and Pierre-Olivier. We are very excited to have you here tonight. This is a great opportunity. We just had a couple of weeks ago the chance to have a dialogue virtually like this when it was organized from your side. And I'm very, very happy that now we have within this format with the International Stammtisch now this opportunity to invite you to come here to Frankfurt. With this International Stammtisch, we bring Frankfurt to our international business community here in Frankfurt, but we also have the chance to bring the world here to Frankfurt. And as Ms. Nagelstedt just said before, you are the first of our international partner cities invited in this format, and this gives me very great pleasure. Philadelphia became immediately one of our most active partner cities when we became partner 5 years ago, and this is because we share a lot in common. I recently said Philadelphia, Frankfurt, that was the natural choice, and this is because you have so many interested people in Germany and in Frankfurt, in Philadelphia, and vice versa. And this also shows in the very intense exchange we already have established. And now, due to the pandemic, it came a little bit to the stop, but we are now working on these levels and channels to intensify the dialogues, and also like our students and schools, they will do the same. We are working on concepts for bringing them together again, first virtually. And so this is a great opportunity tonight. A warm welcome to everybody, and especially to our friends from Philadelphia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edward. Thank you, City of Frankfurt, for giving us the chance to arrange for all that. Katrin Stelzer and Sarah Mahmoudi in your team have done a great job in preparing for everything tonight. And I would like to introduce to our two guests. Very warm welcome to Siobhan Lyons from Citizen Diplomacy International. If you want to say a couple of words about yourself, Siobhan, stage is up to you.
Thank you so much, and hello to everybody in Frankfurt. My name is Siobhan, and I'm the president of Citizen Diplomacy International. We're an international relations organization that was founded by the city of Philadelphia in 1954 to engage Americans in foreign affairs and to connect Philadelphia to the world. So for the last 60 odd years, we've partnered with the city, running the Sister City program and welcoming visitors from all over the world and on professional and business exchanges. So I'm delighted to be here to talk to you more about Philadelphia and the many connections we have with Philadelphia and Frankfurt.
Welcome, Siobhan. Nice to have you on the call. And we've got Pierre-Olivier Lugez from the Department of Commerce, City of Philadelphia. Welcome to the call. Good to have you on the call, Pierre-Olivier.
Thank you, Aroon. Thank you everyone, and thank you, Frankfurt, for inviting us tonight. It's really an honor, and as Edward has mentioned, Frankfurt and Philadelphia have a lot in common, and we've been working quite a bit together for the last 5 years. So my name is Pierre-Olivier, and I'm part of the Department of Commerce of the City of Philadelphia. I'm a director for international business and global strategy, which means I try to lead or do my best doing so, but leading our international strategy and leveraging it to foster international business and international relationships between the city and also various partners across the city and the rest of the world. So I have a focus on global business attraction and investment, but our team is also in charge of international relations, connecting with our partners in the field and connecting with our sister city in tandem with Citizen Diplomacy International. We've been working very closely for the longest time. Siobhan pointed it out, CDI was founded in the 50s. So it's been a long partnership and we love working together. So it's a pleasure being tonight with Siobhan here, talking to you about Philly.
Thank you very much. And having both of you on the call, I think let's take some time to learn a little bit more about Philadelphia, learn a little bit more about business and the city itself. Pierre-Olivier, you have prepared a small presentation, which we would like to take the time to just have a look at and understand a little bit more about what we can learn about the city and what's going on.
Sure, my pleasure. Yes, we're the 6th largest city in the US, and usually no one knows what's in the city, which is the 6th largest of any country in the world. So we love doing like a little pitch. I'm going to try to be short. Tell me if I'm too long, but that helps. It's informative. So if I can share my screen and the right screen, let me see if you're not seeing this. Great. All right, Philly. So most of you probably know that, but we're located at the heart of what we call the Northeast Corridor in the US. So that stretch of cities between Boston and Washington, DC on the East Coast. And we're close to New York. We're just 1 hour-ish by train. So it's very easy to do business in normal times from Philadelphia to New York, and same with DC, which is south of us. We're in between those 2 cities. And from here, you have access to 70% of the US and Canadian population within 1 day's drive. So you're in the middle of a very dense market. And we're well connected to the rest of the US. We're well connected to Europe. Our airport is American Airlines transatlantic hub. So we have lots of flights to Europe. And we have a direct route to you guys with Lufthansa, not American Airlines, at least prior to COVID. We'll work on getting it back. But those are the ties we have with the rest of the world. We're an important port as well on the East Coast, so you can do a lot of trade out of here. We're on the most important train link in the US, which goes between Boston and DC. And we're the third busiest train station in the US, to give an idea. And that's walking distance from our center city. So you just do business in a very easy manner and in a very European way. You don't always need a car here. So that's one of the things which is nice about Philly. It's walkable, it's bikeable. You hop on the train from Center City and City Hall in 20 minutes. You're at the airport. You're at the train station in a few minutes. You just go on doing business in a very easy manner. It feels very familiar for Europeans. I'm French. You probably heard it. So I say it from a personal level. And then obviously we're sitting at the crossroad of 2 major highway systems, going to the inland towards the inside of the country and all along the East Coast. And Philly, you may, if you know a bit your history, you probably remember it as an industrial city. We were a very industrial city, steel, textile, and we've reinvented ourselves. So we currently have a diversified economy with few strengths. Leisure and hospitality, we're a very big convention town, fairs and trade and conventions, as well as touristic. So we do have a significant sector there. We welcomed 46 million visitors last year, our best year ever. 2020 is going to be different, of course, but that we are a strong city in B2B services and in trade and transportation, considering our people, the importance of our port and airport. And a third of our economy is actually in what we call EDS and MEDS, education and medical sectors, health services and life sciences. So that's Philly in a nutshell. And about 25% of all the new jobs in town are created in the tech sector, underpinning each of those segments. So yes, the one thing that Philly is booming for and is more and more known for is its life science sector. We were an industrial city with a strong chemical sector, which spun into a pharmaceutical sector, and with our universities, we're spinning it into innovative life sciences. The first gene therapy in the world is out of Philadelphia. With just one single injection in each eye, it reverses a certain type of genetic blindness in kids, so that the kids see again, just one shot. So that's the type of thing we have here. So Philly is really making a dent in that field in the world. 80% of pharmaceutical companies which are active globally are present in our region. We have all those numbers. If ever anyone in the assistance want to talk more about that, please reach out. And we have a thriving tech sector as well. Digital health, which is associated quite a bit with the life science field, biotech, obviously fintech. We have several investment funds which are pretty big in the US, which are located locally. So they drive a fintech sector, which I know obviously is a big industry as well in Frankfurt, being a major financial place in Europe. InsurTech as well, and any tech associated with B2B services. We're also very well known in the US for diversity in tech. That means women in tech, but also minorities on racial lines in the US context, and LGBTQ community. So we're very much on the forefront of social progress in that field. And all of this is underpinned by a huge pool of universities. And the talent coming out of it is staying more and more in Philadelphia. There are about 90,000 degrees awarded annually in the region to students, and more than half of them are staying in Philadelphia. Several of those universities are world-renowned, so we attract students from all over the US and from all over the world. And again, like more than half of those are staying locally. So that they do consider Philadelphia a place where they can start their career. So that says a lot about how they see us as a place where to invest their life, about our quality of life, and also that's been driving our economic growth in the last decade, 2 decades. 20 years ago, we were keeping only 20 to 25% of our students. And if you need a comparison, Boston is keeping about 42% of its students. So that's been really a huge economic driver for us. And that's been fueling our population growth as well. Currently, 26% of the city residents are millennial, so born between 81 and 96. So a very active class of folks, and we're very, part of it. I'm from 81, so it's a dynamic generation, and we're very happy because it's been helping us grow back. Again, we were an industrial city in the US, so we were not Detroit, but there are some cities which never pivoted out of their industrial past. We did, and that's been part of it. So we are a city in the end of 1.6 million people in the middle of a 6.5 million metropolitan area. So
actually, while we are here in front of Paulskirche.
Sorry?
Somebody interrupted. Sorry, I'll
oh yeah,
go on
please
mute and
do so. I just didn't hear well.
No, I didn't hear it as well. I think it was a mistake. Please continue, Pierre-Olivier. Sorry for that.
Great, that works. No problem at all. So that's been one driver of our growth, as well as foreigners, foreign-born population. We used to be about 6% foreign-born residents. Now we are at a little over 15. So the city is diversifying, and it's becoming, as a consequence, it's also becoming a more and more welcoming environment. Siobhan and I can testify about that. All of that while being in the middle of the East Coast, which is, well, pretty pricey area, especially New York. But Philly being, even if it's a big city, those numbers show you that like we're actually a place where it's relatively easy and cheap to do business and also to live. We're only 10% more expensive than the average in the US, but we're more than twice cheaper than New York, both for doing business and for living. You can buy a house here for the price of a one-bedroom apartment in Paris. I did it. So it's a city where you can have a great quality of life when at the same time it's big, but not too big. You'll find opportunities and you're close to New York and DC. That's a convenient balance. We're a city of firsts, or so the Americans love to say it. That's our pitch. Forgive me. Sometimes I present it to people from Australia, and for them, we are very old. Obviously, for Europeans, we're very young. Nonetheless, the area in the city has been the first settlers arrived here in the early 1600s. And the city was created in 1682. So by US standards, we're old. And we were actually the largest and most important city in the US until New York took over somewhere in the second part of the 19th century. So there's a lot happened here. And it's a relatively old city. If you even think about our cities in Europe, I'm from the north of France. Most of it was, most of the recent history really happened around the Industrial Revolution. So we have that history as well, which we share here in Philly. That's the same type of age. So American democracy happened here. You can see Independence Hall right there. The first hospital in the US was here, the first library, the first zoo, but also the first computer in the 60s out of the University of Pennsylvania. And as I mentioned, the first gene therapy in the world. So historic and still innovating those days. Historic, we're lucky to have been the largest city in the US and the wealthiest for a while. So a lot of the industry magnates created large art collections and donated them to the city and to various institutions, foundations, which created a wealth of museums. And as a consequence, we do have a very active art culture. And art programs. The second largest Rodin collection is here in Philadelphia. You'll find the first museum was Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, this and that. But it's not only museums, it's really like when you live in Philly, you feel like there's a sense of culture and community from 1% for art, which means you find sculptures all over the city in various plazas and in front of some buildings, but also thousands of murals. We have the oldest and largest mural program in the world. That program manages nearly 4,000 murals and adds some consistently, so performing arts, which go with it. And there are about 10 times more informal murals across the city. It's very fun. It's actually like, I could send you the site and just scroll through all the murals they create. Mm-hmm. It's really fabulous. We're also a foodie city. There are more restaurants per capita in Philadelphia than in New York. So, and with all our foreign communities, Chinatown, we have an Africa town, we have huge, we have Germantown, obviously, for good reasons. Pretzels are a Philadelphia thing, but obviously the roots are on your side of the world. Anyway, a very deep food cultures that's very, very nice. Music as well, and we're called the city of neighborhoods. So they have strong identities. People are very tight together. we stoop. Most houses are row houses in the city with like few steps in front of their doorsteps, and we sit on our stoops in the evening all through summer. So I get my neighbors on a regular basis, and it's socially distant. You know, their stoop is like 5 meters away. So you have that kind of feeling. It's a tight city. It feels relatively European, and you can walk, you can bike, you don't need to drive everywhere. You can take the subway, you can take the bus. It's a neat town when you're crossing the Atlantic. And we're a big sports city as well. Basketball, hockey, American football, football as well. We actually played against you, if I remember correctly, a couple of years ago. Yes, we did. So anyway, a fun town, and we're grounded. We do have like deep roots, and one of them is German settlers in the Delaware Valley. So in our valley, in our region, and which founded along with a few Quakers, Germantown in 1683. So as old as a city, and it's Germantown here in Philly. Now it's a neighborhood in Philadelphia, but it's an essential part of American history. That was where the anti-slavery movement started. That there are deep cultural roots there. Siobhan can talk more about that. That's what we call. That's where the name Pennsylvania Dutch started, which is a type of culture from arts and craft and this, and by Dutch, it's been simplified to Dutch as it's written on the screen in English, but it's Deutsch, not our Netherlands, French, Euro. Yes. So, and we have a wealth of German-oriented association as a consequence, the German Society. So obviously, getting to the point, that was very natural to enter into sister city relationship with Frankfurt for so many reasons, and we're very happy to be celebrating our 5th anniversary. If you don't mind, our mayor actually registered a small congratulatory message some days ago for his American-German Friendship Day, and we could play with it. We could play it. He's mentioning few of our historical ties. Back to you, Aaron. Do you want? Would you want to play that message?
I play the message. Yeah.
Oh, great.
I gave you.
Thank you to Burgermeister Peter Feldman and to the entire city of Frankfurt and its great people for the wonderful invitation to speak tonight as we celebrate the friendship between our two countries and the even deeper friendship and ties between Frankfurt and Philadelphia. We're proud to be a sister city with Frankfurt, a partner that has only grown closer and stronger over the past 5 years. Seeing our two football teams play one another in a friendly game 2 years ago was a delight and an illustration of the breadth of our partnership. Philadelphia is an international city, the first World Heritage City in the United States, and we're proud of the close relationship with other countries that we've been able to build, including Germany, which has remained a critical partner to our city and nation. Philadelphia's incredible diversity is one of our biggest assets. Now more than ever, it is important for us to embrace that. Philadelphia has a deep German heritage and history. Germantown, one of Philadelphia's many great neighborhoods, was founded by German families all the way back in 1683. The establishment of Germantown put into place Pennsylvania founder William Penn's bold ideas of religious toleration of different faiths, bringing Quakers and other groups that had been unwelcome in England and continental Europe. Germantown has played a significant role in American history. It was the birthplace of the American anti-slavery movement, the site of a Revolutionary War battle, the temporary residence of George Washington, the location of the first Bank of the United States, and the residence of many notable politicians, scholars, artists, and social activists. Today, it's home to more than a dozen historical sites and attractions. And when it's safe again, you are all welcome to come to experience the wonder of those places for yourselves. Another common thread between Philadelphia and Frankfurt, our cities were the national seats of our country's first democratically elected assemblies, which both played a crucial role in the rise of democracy in our countries and to other nations around the world. Recent history has shown the importance of friendship between Germany and the United States. Last November, the celebrations for the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall were a brilliant testimony of the strong ties between our two great democracies and of what those ties can achieve. Our friendship has passed the test of time and will continue to endure in the years ahead. As we celebrate the 5th anniversary of our sister city relationship, and as we mark German-American Friendship Day, I look forward to the years ahead, especially when we can travel to celebrate in person once more. Auf Wiedersehen.
So that was our dear mayor, Jim Gunny. So,
very good.
But adding to what he said, like we're really happy and then to celebrate tonight the 5th anniversary of our sister city relationship with Frankfurt.
I think, Pierre-Olivier, you are a perfect ambassador for Philadelphia. You should consider a second professional career that way. Very interesting information. Thank you for sharing that. And I think very obviously many things which we have in common, many similarities from a social life, from arts and culture, from a historic part, and as Major Jim Kenny just mentioned, from the roots, but also from being first ones in history, for example, for democracy and so on. So I think there are many things which we have in common. So perhaps a good idea to talk about our friendship and relationship and the partner city relationship. If I may direct that question towards Siobhan. Siobhan, I think that would be great to understand more the development and understanding more about the relevance of that partner city relationship. I think that is something which your organization is looking after and which you are much working on and concentrating on. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, thank you very much. As everyone's mentioned, we're celebrating 5 years of the Sister City Partnership between Philadelphia and Frankfurt. I actually started at Citizen Diplomacy in 2016, so just after the Sister City relationship was signed. So this grew about, as Edward Hechler said, when Frankfurt was looking around at its Sister City program and decided that they realized they didn't have a US Sister City, which seemed to be, you know, an amazing sort of just gap in a Sister City relationship. And they looked around, and our mayor at the time, Mayor Nutter, was considering expanding our Sister City program. And between Philadelphia and Frankfurt, it was just a perfect match. Clearly, as you've heard before, we have a huge history of German immigration, so a long cultural history between our two countries, and many connections, whether it's the first capital, the first parliaments, and the beginnings of modern democracy in both our countries. And of course, today, in the last 5 years, we've hosted many delegations. Mayor Feldman has been to Philadelphia twice. Edward Hechler has come over several times. And we ourselves sent a delegation led by our former Director of Commerce, Harold Epps, and our current Acting Director of Commerce, Sylvie Gallier-Howard, to Frankfurt in 2016. But I think more importantly than just the official relationships, it's the people-to-people relationships that sister cities are able to cultivate. And since the program started in 2017, we've already had 9 different exchanges between Frankfurt high schools and Philadelphia high schools. And we were actually about to launch an additional 2 exchanges with 2 more schools. So we've had well over 100 Frankfurt students travel to Philadelphia in just the past few years. And these sort of connections that are made at a very young age are hugely influential for the sort of connections between our 2 cities. So as we look into COVID, we are hoping that we will be launching some virtual exchange programs starting in the new year, and they will be focusing on innovation and entrepreneurship. And of course, Frankfurt as a hub of biotech and IT will be one of our key partners as we create these virtual exchanges, because we really want to create these connections for young people to come to Philadelphia, to learn about their sister city, and to learn about all of the opportunities that exist in the United States for them. But equally, we want our Philadelphia students to recognize that there is a huge world out there, and the ability to create connections between people and to understand people from different cultures are essential to surviving in a global world.
Thanks a lot. Incredible. I think from an educational standpoint, from a students exchange standpoint, very well understood. Let's deep dive a little bit more into the business part of that. What does it mean from an economical standpoint to have this partnership? Perhaps to both of you, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I'll start, then Pierre can fill in with some facts. I mean, the goal of Sister Cities from the beginning was it's the highest form of bilateral cooperation between two cities. And it's really important that, you can build these connections, because businesses are ultimately run by people. And people make decisions for all kinds of reasons, but a lot of it is looking at, it's not just sort of what is the most economic, value that can be created, but there's also personal issues. Like a lot of the times when somebody decides, the United States is a very large place. And so if you're going to come and sort of open a business in Philadelphia, in the United States, how do you pick? There could be several cities that, you would have heard of or think could be great for your business. But ultimately, that decision is going to be a very personal thing. Maybe you studied there. Maybe you had a friend who grew up in Philadelphia. Maybe you just ate Philadelphia cream cheese. But something will sort of like click in your head. And Sister Cities is about creating this awareness and cultural affinity so that people begin to understand each other. And of course, it helps boost tourism. It does help attract international visitors from our sister cities to Philadelphia. And, and ultimately creating a more international city and creating a city with a global mindset that's welcoming to international people, whether it's sister cities or other parts of the world, is essential to our city's economic growth.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with what Siobhan has said. I don't know what I can add to it. No, the best beyond that, from the city standpoint, our efforts have been increasing our connectivity with cities which have the most in common with us. We're not there to like go poach German cities and come to Philly and drop your activity. We're here. Our job is really to foster, to create ties which are really bilateral and go both ways. What can we do for each other, help each other, go at city work, and to help our businesses grow across the Atlantic, but with ecosystems which have the most in common, so that they have a welcoming environment on both sides. So yeah, I think in common biotech, some IT fields and that kind of thing is key. Having academic institutions from schools to universities and that kind of thing, which can create ties, are key in identifying cities, for us, cities which have the maximum potential for a very successful relationship. And Frankfurt is definitely one of them. We're delighted to be sister city with you. And really we envisioned such type of partnerships in a very multilateral and multifaceted kind of way. It's trying to benefit at all levels and facilitate and connect.
What kind of businesses are there? That means, is it a typical industry? You mentioned a couple of areas where you can see that Philadelphia specializes in, or that you get a lot of business from certain areas. We mentioned tech, we mentioned education. Anything specific where you would say from the Frankfurt Philadelphia connection? Any areas or specific examples which you would remember or which you wanted to point out?
Yes, we've received interest from companies in biotech and pharma sectors. Okay. Startups, companies with high growth, fast growth, which need to access the US market and grow there and leverage the financial the financial backing you can get here. So leveraging the best of the US market to foster their growth, well, here and also on the European market. So that type of thing, and or IT companies. I'll put it there. We have SAP. SAP is a North American headquarters, is in our suburbs. So we get everyone which is working with SAP in Europe, and especially obviously German companies also come here quite naturally. So we have that other natural bridge. So a lot of IT, a lot of biotech, and mostly mid-sized companies which want to start from scratch in the US market.
So the typical German Mittelstand, or what is it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
They go everywhere, right? We talked about the German business. I can imagine, and Mayor Jim Kenney mentioned that it's a very diverse city by the nationalities coming in. What kind of business communities are there? What are the expats living in Philadelphia today?
Siobhan, you want to start, or?
Sure. So, I mean, Philadelphia, as Pierre said, has become a very international city. You know, 15% of our population is immigrant born, and immigrants have really been a large part of the drivers of our growth of our city over the past 2 decades. I myself moved to Philadelphia nearly 15 years ago, and so I can certainly speak to the fact that it's become much more immigrant friendly. Mayor Kenney in particular cares a great deal about immigrants. He has been a long supporter of immigration and immigration reform and welcoming people to Philadelphia. We have a mayor's office of immigrant affairs that works to support immigrants who move to the city and need additional support. But we also have a wonderful organization called the Welcoming Center for New Pennsylvanians, which is similar to yours, I think, Aroon. And that's an organization that seeks to help immigrants integrate into our society. But beyond that, we have the oldest consular corps in the United States. We have dozens of international business chambers, and then we have a large variety of sort of social groups like Internations, which I know you have a very busy chapter in Frankfurt. We have the Rotary, we have Eurocircle, and then, you know, you'll find all of the different communities. I often joke that I became more Irish when I came to Philadelphia because it was by coming to Philadelphia I had to engage in the Irish community to sort of find my way through the city. And because it is such an Irish city as well as a German city, it was one of these amazing opportunities that was like, by being Irish, I actually became Philadelphian. So.
And probably a typical example, I would assume.
Yes, you know, it's very nice when you're able to come. I mean, as you know, obviously the Irish are sort of a very special group of immigrants in the United States, but it is sort of special to come and like, well, our mayor is Irish American. Some of our city council people are Irish American. You know, some of our judges. You know, you definitely feel very, very welcomed, and sort of, you know, you can see the history of Ireland. I mean, just so you know, William Penn was born in England, but actually grew up in Ireland. So he was Anglo-Irish aristocracy. So we consider Philadelphia an Irish city from the beginning.
Pierre, both of you, actually, I understand you came into the city, you started new in the city. How was that for you to come into the city? That means how was your personal experience being an expat in the beginning?
Being actually an immigrant, not even an expat, it was. I mean, it's obviously a little daunting. You're changing countries, and so we left France. My first contact with Philadelphia was actually 15 years ago, because I met my spouse during my Erasmus year. So again, like, studying abroad is a very key thing in the world for personal trajectory in life. So my first contact, he was studying at the time here in Philly. So I visited the city, really liked the city, and long and behold, we lived in Paris for many, many years. And like about 5 years ago, we decided to move to the US, and we chose Philadelphia because it was a city which we really loved, which rang true, which has a deep history, which is affordable, where we could see our careers restart, and which is a human size, and it's a fun town. So that's for that part. Starting my career here, I was a lawyer specialized in European Union law. So, you know, that's something which is easily transferred in the US. That being said, I used to work mostly with foreign companies. When I showed up here, I decided to leverage that and be like, I understand what foreign companies and international companies have in mind when they cross a border. What are their challenges, what they're looking for. And I tried to find something in there. And I connected with the Welcoming Center, which Siobhan mentioned, and which is a nonprofit helping foreign skilled immigrants to pivot their skill in the US job market. Things don't work exactly the same way here. So you really need to adjust and ease yourself into the local market. So they were very helpful. And that led to me starting a fellowship, the sort of internship, you can call it that way, with the city of Philadelphia at the Department of Commerce in the international team. And that created my job, and here I am a few years after. So a welcoming, yeah, it's a welcoming environment which is ready to like help you become one of us.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and again, many similarities to be seen. Siobhan, obviously, I want to ask you about your story. Please share how your experience was in the beginning.
So, I mean, I think it was a very similar immigrant story. You know, I actually worked in the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs. So I had served as an Irish diplomat prior to moving to Philadelphia. But I married a Canadian who started a company, and he and his friends got funding from Ben Franklin Technology Partners. So they were a biotech company. And this is one of our startup funds in the city of Philadelphia. But one of the criteria of having this money is you must be based in the state of Pennsylvania. So without dissing Pittsburgh too hard, there's only one city in the state of Pennsylvania, and that's Philadelphia. So, so yeah, we moved to Philadelphia. Their office was based at the Science Center, and I moved to Philadelphia and accidentally found myself working for the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. So, you know, it all kind of just worked that way. But I think, you know, one of the things that was so wonderful about Philly is I'd actually visited Philadelphia about a year before we moved, just shortly after I moved to the United States. And as soon as I arrived, I went, wow, this is a beautiful city. I think I could live here. And I think that's something that, you know, people from Frankfurt and particularly Europeans are going to find. It's a, you know, it is a very European city. You know, the architect was born in England, but grew up in Ireland. So, you know, he's an Irishman. And so, you know, you really feel that sort of European sort of feel to it. It's very human scale. It's very beautiful. It's historic. And there's just so much going on. So it's a really lovely city to spend time in. So.
Wow, another enthusiast. In my first conversation with Pierre-Olivier, when we started, I said that the Frankfurters are used actually to that not being liked, and it's a city where nobody comes because he always wanted to live his life in Frankfurt. It's more that people come here for business or because some job opportunity or something brings them here, and then only later people fall in love with the city. It sounds that you did some fairly deliberate choices or deliberate decisions to go to Philadelphia somehow in your life. Incredible. Thanks for sharing the stories.
Well, I think one thing I will just say on that is Philadelphia, I think, is quite like Frankfurt in that. So if you talk to normal Philadelphians who are born here, they're very sort of like Philadelphia. You know, sometimes people joke and they call it Negadelphia, because the Philadelphians are just very blasé. It's really newcomers to the city. I think like me and Pierre-Olivier and a lot of the sort of the growth that's happened, you know, we are really the true ambassadors now for the city because we've seen just how amazing it is. Whereas a lot of Philadelphians take the history for granted and, you know, and they're just like, well, you know, it's just Philly. So I think, you know, that's another similarity between Philadelphia and Frankfurt.
And I was going to add to that. Yeah, in a good way. And I was going to add to that, we're oddly sandwiched between Washington, D.C. and New York. So when you're a foreigner and you show up here, Philadelphians are like, why are you here? The big cities up north, you go to New York, that's where all the internationals are. And I'm like, you don't understand. Your city is amazing. You have a great quality of life. It's fun. It's nice. It's human size. New York is a grind. So yeah, Philadelphians don't realize that they live in a very nice city.
And Frankfurters need to be reminded of that occasionally. Sometimes I think it is extremely newcomers reflecting back that it is worthwhile and that it's fun to be in cities. So thanks for sharing again. We talked about the situation being a newcomer to a city, and my team, my organization, Newcomers Network, together with many other organizations, the City of Frankfurt, Katrin Stelzer's team, but also private organizations. I've seen that some of our guests are members of clubs. I saw Esra joining from the American International Women's Club and so on. So many private and government institutions are working with newcomers and trying to help in the first couple of weeks or months when you come into town and when you come into city. And what are the things which Philadelphia does to foster those support within the first few weeks as newcomers? What are specific things which come to your mind, which your organizations do, or what you are aware of?
I can start from the government standpoint. So how to say that? When you shop in the US, the way the American society works is with a much more hands-off approach from the government levels. This country really loves its individual freedoms. So usually governments are traditionally not very much involved at the individual level of people's life. So that's one. So you won't find much help, in another way, you won't find a lot of help from the federal government or the state level. And at the city of Philadelphia, that's been now 30, 40 years that the city has more and more invested into helping foreigners when they show up. Not to say that, don't imagine it's a level of help that we could find in Europe, where our governments tend to be more active or more proactive for us at the individual level. But as Siobhan mentioned, we have an Office for Immigrant Affairs, which is here to support immigrants, especially where they are challenged by the federal government. And we do, in normal times, budget is getting complicated, but in normal times, we try to support various organizations, nonprofit organizations, which are community-based and help immigrants. The Welcoming Center is one of them, but CDI, sadly, our budget is challenged by COVID, but CDI was also an organization we were helping to help connect foreigners. Siobhan?
Yeah, and I think, so with the support of the city, which promotes Philadelphia as a welcoming city, there's a huge variety of internationally focused organizations that are there to support immigrants and international visitors. So, I think if someone were to move to Philadelphia, the first thing that I would say would be to look at, the local chamber. We have a wonderful German-American chamber here. The German Society is the oldest German society in the United States. It was founded in 1764 and has an amazing library of some of, incredible German and English books, but also strong connections to the German community, both recent immigrants and of course German Americans. So there's lots of different organizations that, to connect you to your heritage. Like I always recommend to people that they find these sort of immigrant groups that are connected to them, and then we branch out from there. But even an organization like mine at Citizen Diplomacy, pre-COVID, we used to host monthly networking events that we partnered with the Welcoming Center. So our members tend to be internationally minded Philadelphians who love to travel and want to hear the news firsthand from people, and also a lot of students and young people. So we partnered with the Welcoming Center to bring the immigrants from their programs, but also to just anybody. Our meetings and our programs are open to anybody who just wants to connect with the international community. And, and there are many other organizations that offer, all kinds of culture. If you're interested in sort of international music or art, there are groups that support all of those interests, like across the city. It doesn't take long. We're a city of neighborhoods, and so it doesn't take long to find your people.
I'm learning from you. It sounds great. I think working on that cultural background, working from a language perspective, working within that makes total sense to me. And I think that is something which we could also leverage on. I've told you before when we had our little discussion, we just came from an incredibly big Newcomers festival here in Frankfurt 2 weeks ago, where we had like over 1,000 people in the city hall who had the chance to visit and see stalls from supporters, suppliers, professional companies, and so on. But I think ongoing, the biggest challenge is to stay in contact, to be able to connect to people, to have the network running. Things like International Stammtisch, extremely challenged by COVID and the surroundings we have, because simply people really, really enjoy and prefer to meet in person these days, even which is the biggest challenge we have right now. What were your challenges over the last weeks with COVID? That means how do you cope with the situation extremely when it comes to connecting new people? Are there new people actually? What is the situation for you right now?
Go for it, Siobhan.
Go ahead. You start with the city.
In terms of the situation on the ground here, obviously you've all witnessed in Europe the difficult spring we've had, and then especially in New York, which is next door, and then the difficult summer as well in the Midwest and South. In Philly, the beginning of the crisis was complicated, but since towards the summer, our numbers were very much down, and we are still stable at anywhere between 4 and 8 new cases per 100,000 inhabitants, so a fairly low number, and we're steady. So we're very happy with that. But considering things were difficult in New York and then like in the rest of the country, the city and the state and the few states around us have taken a very careful approach in terms of reopening things. Our students are still doing high schools in virtually. Same for our students in universities. Restaurants are open at 50% capacity indoor. I'm still working from home. I've been working from home for 6 months. So we're doing good. We're not back to normal. And we're remaining cautious. In terms of welcoming the world, we're welcoming the world mostly virtually, because most foreigners are actually prohibited from entering the US, just like most Americans are prohibited from entering the EU. So this is a new normal for us right now, but we're hopeful to be keeping our numbers down for the foreseeable future and slowly rebuild with all of our friends.
Yeah, and I think from the perspective of citizen diplomacy and the other international organizations, I mean, every organization is slightly different, but I'm sure there are many similarities between them. I mean, we closed our offices in the middle of March, and we do not expect to have any in-person meetings or delegations until at least 2021. Normally we host about 1,500 international visitors on professional and educational exchanges each year. So that's almost completely at a stop. But what we have done over the past few months is we started to work on more virtual exchanges. So we partner with the US State Department, and of course we partner with the city of Philadelphia to do professional exchanges. So we're still hosting meetings and connecting Philadelphians with their counterparts around the world. And I think most exciting, we've been looking at new models for virtual exchange. And over the summer, we did this very successful exchange between Philadelphia University students and students in Egypt. And it was all about STEM innovation and how to be an entrepreneur. And we were able to connect these university students with, for example, Dr. Stefan Grupp, who's at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, who invented one of these gene cell therapies that cures leukemia. They also met with other entrepreneurs who have launched companies and created inventions, and they talked to people at the Science Center about the different sort of resources that are here in Philadelphia to support entrepreneurship. So it was a really great opportunity to connect Philadelphia students with Egyptian students, and then also for these students to see what Philadelphia has to offer. And we're now working on that for our sister city exchanges. And clearly we want Frankfurt to be part of our STEM Innovator Exchange when we're ready for the new year.
I think we're ready to volunteer as guinea pigs for any kind of new format. Let's try. And I can see Katrin nodding in the background. I think let's discuss what we can do. That sounds like a great idea. Actually, that's a nice one. Let's finish our little discussion and then open up for questions to the audience if there are any. But we just started on visionizing a little bit on how the future could look like. So what are ideas which you could imagine? I mean, what are the visions in the current situation, if we can have visions now? Any ideas
yes.
you're working on?
Please give me a crystal ball. No, I know. So very long view of the world. Past pandemics, past epidemics have shown that cities tend to suffer through those times. But at the same time, the desire of people to get back together and to exchange, live together, and also be part of creative communities. Innovation doesn't usually come from the countryside of Minnesota or I don't know, the fields of Russia. Sorry, no negative meaning in any of this, but it usually comes from cities, universities, education, environment, and that type of thing, cultural assets. The cities will come back. Our cities will bounce back. It's just going to be a challenge in the next few years to find a new path, find the new reality. In the American context, one of the big challenges is what do we do with our towers in center cities, in downtowns? Something which is, well, yes, especially Frankfurt. Unlike most European companies where tall office buildings is less the norm. But for instance, my office is a 18-story building, and we're not encouraged to go back to work simply because they don't want more than 4 people in an elevator at a time. What do you do with those assets? How do you reconvert them? Are we going to soon be able to go back into those things? But beyond that, in a way or another, humans want to the human contact that Edward was speaking about earlier at the beginning of our meeting. We need those things, so we'll get back to it. I just cannot. I have a hard time imagining the details of it yet.
Yeah, it is hard. Yeah, Siobhan, any ideas or anything you are working on?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's hard exactly to say what's going to happen in the very short term. I mean, certainly we are focusing on virtual exchanges and how to continue to make connections for Philadelphia virtually. And in many ways, while it doesn't replace the in-person exchange, it has opened up new ways of communication. We wouldn't have been thinking of having these types of events before, and now I certainly know we will be continuing to do virtual programs even when we start to welcome people in person. But if I think about the city of Philadelphia, yes, things are very difficult right now, but the key things that make Philadelphia special, the fundamentals are still strong. We're still a historic city. We're still affordable. We're still beautiful. We still have this very strong education and medical sector that I think obviously we're going to see an increase. There's going to be a lot of investment in healthcare and education over the next few years, and that will enhance Philadelphia. And, we've been through adversity before. Philadelphia was this, the home of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and so the beginning of the war with, the war for independence. So, and then in more recent history, after the sort of collapse of manufacturing, Philadelphia went into a decline. And so sort of our recent boom has been a resurgence of the city after many years of population decline and sort of revenue decline. So the art scene and the nonprofit scene and our great restaurant scene grew out of the collapse of the manufacturing. And so it's now a question of like what will come to replace some of the things that we're going to lose. But I think the most exciting thing that I just want to let everybody know about in Philadelphia right now is we really are at this sort of peak of, there's sort of a turnover in leadership at all levels in the city of Philadelphia. Most recently, just at the beginning of 2020, we elected a whole number of young people to our city council. And so what you're seeing now is a lot of newcomers, both in politics, taking over companies. And you know, the problems that COVID brought about is they showed a lot of the faults in our society, whether it's about healthcare or the inequalities in education. And because we have these new leaders who are seeing these faults in a sort of a much harsher light, there's a lot of opportunity to change. And I think, you know, definitely at our city council level, at a lot of our political levels, at a lot of the different companies, people are asking the big questions of like, how can we make the city better? How can we make our society better? And I think with the new generation of leaders, you know, I think we're going to see some very exciting things. It's going to be difficult in the short term, but I think ultimately good things will come of this.
I am so much with you, and I can't believe in many of the things which you said, because they came very much from our thinking over the last few weeks as well. We just recently had a newcomers reception in Paulskirche. Paulskirche is the cradle of the democracy here, very much similar to your history, and some of the ideas, and one of the talking points in Paulskirche when we talked about newcomers was, we in our newcomers network believe that newcomers in future is much more new thoughtship, new ideas, new innovation, rather than the newcomers physically coming into the city. So what our idea in newcomers network is, we will move not only to welcome newcomers physically into the city because it's new people into the city, but to work on new ideas, innovation, thought leadership, technology, and things like that. So I'm really amazed and very happy to hear what you just said, because I think it's chiming into what our ideas here are as well. Incredible things, and I think a lot to come, and probably not us to figure out or even to imagine what the potential of that can be. Thank you very much for sharing the ideas. I would like to open up to questions. We are a very small but very comfortable group tonight. I can see some of the guests who I actually know because they work a lot with us from organizations, but also from friendly organizations here. If anybody has a question or has a question to Pierre-Olivier or to Siobhan, please feel free to just open up the mic. If there is a problem with the mic, let me know or wave, and we get you in and open the session for you. So open for questions if anybody has anything at this point. Judith will help me if we can see somebody. Otherwise, use the chat function to raise your hand or to ask for the screen. Can't see anybody right now.
Any question you may have in mind, feel free.
Otherwise, give you some more moments. Don't be shy. Otherwise, yeah. I think building on the discussions we had about the partnership and the city relationship is also vice versa. Just to touch on a totally different subject, is Germany or Frankfurt an interesting destination to work or settle business abroad? That means changing the view from Philadelphia side to Frankfurt. Is that something which would be interesting?
Yes, I mean, again, as Siobhan pointed out earlier, our city has sent 1 or even 2 delegations a few years back following our signing of a Star City agreement with Frankfurt, which, I mean, you don't do those delegations just to see the world. You do it because it makes sense. Germany and Frankfurt are seen as dependable, reliable, stable economic environments with an economic background which is it. You guys have the reputation of quality and of reliability, and in a very uncertain world, those are amazing assets. The reliability of the workforce, of talent, the engineering, the capacity to help, your economic fabric is seen as somewhere where it's interesting to invest, it's interesting to start. The only thing is obviously the language barrier, but that again is something which exists all across Europe. Again, I'm French, and starting in France when you don't speak French is not an easy one. Yeah. So yes, and our dear friends in the UK have decided to sail away. So Dublin is obviously, for Siobhan, quite a nice location for US companies to like start and then go to the rest of Europe. But the next natural step is really the continent where the mass market is, and Germany is like high there. Like the quality of the ecosystem is amazing from a business perspective. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think to add to what Pierre-Olivier said, one of the things that we do when we talk about sister cities and just international relations in general is we emphasize that it's about exchange. It's not about Philadelphia just telling everyone how great we are, though we are great and you should come and visit. But, we have much to learn from other parts of the world too. And one of the things that we focused on a lot with Germany in particular is the workforce development and the apprenticeship programs that, Germany is a world leader in. And, when Mayor Feldman came, when we first traveled to Frankfurt in 2016, we visited a number of these sort of, the educational sort of apprenticeship schools. When Mayor Feldman came in 2017, we hosted a workforce development program. And in Philadelphia in particular, we're very much looking at how we can encourage more people to go into the trades and to change this conception that like being in trades or working with your hands is somehow lower, and that Germany has done such an amazing job of going, you can start as an apprentice at a young age, you can get paid, you get on this path to a very successful career. That doesn't necessarily mean you don't ever go to college. You might still, but maybe you don't, and that's also okay. So, when we're thinking about these high school exchange programs, in an ideal world, we want to do things like STEM and IT and sort of the mechanical engineering with a goal of showing these young people that there are other opportunities around the world. And I can tell you that all of the Philadelphia students who have been to Frankfurt came back going, I would move to Germany. They had a wonderful time in Frankfurt, and they were amazed at how many similarities there were between Philadelphia and Frankfurt and how at home they felt. So for the students that we sent to Frankfurt, we opened their eyes. Most of these students had never been outside the United States. They were usually the first person in their family to have left the country. And some of them might never have been outside Philadelphia. And the first place they went to, they were welcomed by the mayor, in the rumor, and they just had the most amazing time. So, I know those students would all move to Germany if there were opportunities. And what we've told them is there are plenty of opportunities, and the German government there's many scholarships and opportunities for further exchange. At high school level, at university level, and then of course opportunities to go and work if you have skills to offer. So.
Sounds excellent. I mean, yes, please. That is something to continue on, and that is something to deep dive as soon as any possibilities start again to further close those connections. Sounds like a really excellent idea. I can see another excellent idea on the chat here, which is an incredibly immoral offer here to you guys, because it says that it's from Eike Knall, who is actually representing a local radio station here, a very, very, very famous local radio station here with over 2 million listeners every day, and he says please use his channels and our channels to promote Philadelphia in Germany and in Frankfurt, and let's continue to have this discussion and to talk and to really talk about the advantages and the partnership in future. So Eike will take you by the word. I've got his phone number and I've got his email address, so we'll leverage and dive into that. Thank you Eike for the offer. Sounds really a good idea. I can see Katrin and Sarah joining forces here. Shall we do a little last round? I think some really good ideas from our partners in Philadelphia. How do you feel about the session tonight, Katrin, Sarah? Any new ideas? Anything coming out which we should leverage on in future from our side?
Well, I think we have pointed out very well that we have a lot in common, although we are separated far away and we haven't seen each other for a while in person. And I think the conclusion from this evening might be that nevertheless we have many virtual possibilities nowadays. The main focus should stay on the personal contact. This is what I took from this International Stammtisch tonight, even though I don't even know you personally, you two from Philadelphia. But I think for the projects we do, it is necessary to see each other in the future. Not this year, of course, maybe next year or sometime else. And from my point of view, this is the conclusion, that we can do a lot of things nowadays in a virtual way, but the experience itself is done in a real way. It's the real feeling and the real thing to see and to touch the things and to see the Philadelphia bell and all these things. I mean, I can see the pictures, I can watch videos, but it's still a different experience if I see it in person.
So first thing we all need to
sorry.
Speak to Lufthansa, right?
American Airlines.
Both of them, but yeah, I agree 100%. We're learning so much. I mean, it's great. Like we have a forced training into online tools that like we were not using as much as we could in the past. We'll use them more, but no, yeah. At the end of the day, like we need to get there. We need to get together.
Yes, absolutely. Siobhan, Pierre, you've been amazing. It's been a wonderful discussion. I truly enjoyed our little preparation calls, our work together. I think there's a huge opportunity to continue our work, to stay in contact. I am inviting some of our guests, which I see who've been fairly quiet, but I think there's a lot which we could do together. I saw Ezra from American International Women's Club. I can see Klaus on the call. I can see Lisa on the call. I think many Frankfurters, people from Frankfurt who've got a lot of things to share and the good ideas. Let's leverage on that and continue the discussion. I think this is hopefully just a start in deepening the relationships between the two cities. It's been a real pleasure and fun to have you on tonight. And it's been a very small group, but I'm still enthusiastic. And I feel we should be, Katrin, Sarah, we should be doing that with other partner cities as well, and continue our conversation with Philadelphia, which we learned so much about tonight. Siobhan, thank you so much for joining. Pierre-Olivier, been a pleasure to have you on the call. Katrin, Sarah, thank you for arranging. And very silently in the background, also Judith Georgi from the Frankfurt School of Finance, helping us with the technology tonight to get this started and running. A big cheers and a big thanks to all of you for arranging. We have more plans in the next upcoming months. International Stammtisch will continue. That means we are hoping, I just spoke to Judith about that, we are hoping to get back into physical meetings, to have the choice to meet each other in person if the situation allows. So the next International Stammtisch, after we had Debu from talking about Indian business, we had Prince Azerate from Ethiopia talking about African matters, we talked about transatlantic connections today with Philadelphia. We'll go back to our home and area Hessen, and we'll talk a little bit about Hessen Agentur, which look into art, museums, culture in Hessen, who've got ideas, initiatives, ideas and projects for digitalization when it comes to arts and culture. And that will be one of our next subjects in International Stammtisch. As always, if you are not a member of International Stammtisch so far, please sign up to our newsletters and to our channels. Please also follow us on social media. Let's all make sure that we can stay in contact and keep the connections and the network running, even if times are very difficult these days. Thank you very much. It's late at night here in Frankfurt. I think Pierre-Olivier, you're the only one who's got a long working day ahead of him. All the others have a wonderful evening. Thank you for staying up late, and cheers and regards from Frankfurt. Thank you everybody for joining. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you. That was so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
and bye-bye.
very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.